by way of brief introduction, my name is Nick Gaski and I lead client enablement here at Kaleido, and joining us today is Jim Zhang, one of the co-founders of the company and the head of protocol. So he has a very decorated history in Hyperledger Fabric, and has led the bulk of our engineering on the Kaleido side to implement and deploy that with the same ease of use as we've done all of our other runtimes and protocols. So really happy to have Jim here joining us today. Couple pieces of housekeeping before I do a quick intro and then turn it over to Jim. This will be recorded and we'll send out the video probably within 12 to 24 hours after this. And then also, if you go to our YouTube channel, just search Kaleido Blockchain on YouTube, you'll find a curated list of all of the Tech Tuesdays and other joint webinars that have taken place over the last roughly 2 years. So looking at a lot of the cool services that we have in Kaleido, looking at other protocols, looking at specific use cases. So this may be of interest if folks want a deeper dive into a specific use case or any specific functionality on the platform as well. So I'm going to share a few slides and then we will dive into the actual demo. So let me present. And we'll take off. So I'm just going to do about 8 to 10 slides, give you an intro to Kaleido, and then Jim's going to drive and walk you through creating a Hyperledger Fabric environment, talk through, why do you want to run this on Kaleido? What's Kaleido done to make your life easy and allow you to focus on, the core business logic and the core things that actually bring value to your network or your consortia. We'll look at some, basic trivial chain code and, SDK-based application. And then we'll look at a really, really cool project that's almost out of the gate here, an abstraction of kind of the core Fabric API, allowing you to use basic RESTful constructs to send data into the network. So that's a really, really neat project that's being sort of insulated and led by an open source project called Hyperledger Firefly, which recently graduated sort of out of labs into a fully incubated state. Okay, so what is Kaleido? Kaleido is a digital transformation platform built for modern business networks. So we are completely industry and use case agnostic. If you look at our customer list, you're going to find retail and entertainment, you're going to find NGOs, you're going to find insurance, healthcare, you name it. So we provide, the flexibility on the protocols, on the clouds, on the configurations and runtimes to accommodate, every different flavor of, consensus algorithm, privacy, publicity, et cetera. You'll see this as Jim walks you through the platform, but if you've used Kaleido in the past, either the interface or our APIs, you'll understand that we've made it very, very intuitive for kind of admin users, but also for developers at the programmatic level, giving you a REST API for every single CRUD operation that's available on the platform. And then the third one, which is critically important, is that everything we build, we build it through the lens of the enterprise. So taking things like HA and DR very seriously, custody of keys very seriously, performance and tuning and all of these ancillary configurations that might be necessary. All of that's either available in the platform as just an embedded first-class citizen or as a deployable or pluggable component. So what do you get when you use Kaleido? So we are multi-cloud, so fully managed on top of AWS or Microsoft Azure with the ability to integrate your rich existing cloud estate, right? So maybe you have key management utilities, maybe you have storage utilities, maybe you have an IAM instance or an Azure Active Directory. All of those core services that exist to your business, those can very easily be leveraged and integrated into your overall Kaleido ecosystem and your Kaleido runtimes right there. It's not a fixed choice. So, we accommodate, very diverse multinational business networks where maybe some company is an AWS shop and another company is a Microsoft Azure shop. So we could have an AWS node in Columbus, Ohio, and another company running an Azure node in Paris, France. And those are going to be able to securely tunnel, securely talk to each other. All of that networking and low-level stuff is completely handled on your behalf by Kaleido so that you can focus on your smart contracts and you can focus on your application. You leave the hard stuff to Kaleido. All three of the big enterprise protocols are available. There's an awesome article that Jim authored. It's been at least a year, but kind of comparing, Ethereum, Fabric, and Corda, talking through the advantages or just different nuances of each, of how data is represented, of how consensus is implemented, how privacy is implemented as well. So all of these are available in production on Kaleido today. So what we see Kaleido as is, yes, it is a digital transformation platform and it is blockchain as a service, but it's really consortia as a service. It's making it easy to accommodate those different requirements, allowing you to layer in role-based access control and allow different organizations to have different tempered permissions inside of the network. As you use the product, you'll see really, really rich metrics and monitoring and data explorers so that, all different types of users can very easily extract any of the information that they might need in the platform. So the best way to think about it is, yes, blockchain as a service, yes, digital transformation platform, yes, consortia as a service, sort of all things blockchain. And if we look at why this sort of consortia as a service idea is so powerful is we see this logical isolation of different planes, right? At the top, we have this shared control plane where we can just decentralize our network. We have clear line of sight into who the participating organizations are, who's onboarding to the network, what are all of the shared resources and runtimes that exist in the network. Then we go a little lower and we start getting into the blockchain and we start getting into off-chain transport rails, right? So we have this sort of middle ground, right, where we're going to share some data. And then at the very bottom, as I was alluding to about integrations with your back office systems or your cloud estate, you have isolated autonomous member planes where you have full control of any integrations that you want to implement, any key management, cycling of credentials, et cetera. So it really bridges all of those different tranches of, sort of shared, hybrid, and then completely private right there in your overall Kaleido experience. Pressing forward, only a couple more slides, I promise. You'll see a flavor of this as Jim goes through it, but what you'll find in Kaleido is yes, we've made blockchain as a service really doggone easy, right? Call an API, click a couple buttons, and boom, here's your Ethereum Corda or Fabric network. But as we build out applications, and as many folks on this call know, it's a lot more than just blockchain as a service and having a node and a smart contract and some algorithm that you trust, right? We need to answer questions around data residency and how that's represented on the blockchain. This middleware component becomes incredibly, incredibly important, right? You have your existing systems of record, whether it's for end users or whether it's for, your personal sensitive private data. So we need all these connectors to your, cloud estate or your back office systems. But then we also need transport rails that are going to allow us to maybe encrypt some arbitrary piece of data and, securely send it to someone else in our network. And then we move up to the very top, using these client libraries and SDKs is kind of tricky, right? So we need easy buttons around digital assets and around REST APIs to, again, I think I've said this 3 times, but allow folks to focus on smart contracts and building applications on top of that. So as you start using Kaleido, what you'll see is, yeah, blockchain as a service, but probably more analogous to, a cloud catalog where, hey, I need a storage utility. Okay, let me just go to this B2B dashboard and I'll deploy, a private storage utility on Kaleido. I need advanced key management. Okay, I'll integrate with a cloud HSM signing service. So all of these are available for you to deploy, plug in, and configure as you see fit on the platform. Lastly, I alluded to, sort of enterprise grade is in our nature. So you can just see a handful of representations to that here. The heavy hitting certifications, ISO 27K and SOC 2 Type 2, really fun things you can do with key management. We've added, PKI based X509 and enterprise identity constructs into Ethereum. Those are there by nature with Fabric, with the certificate authorities, of course. And then other things that are just, really critical as you go down your InfoSec requirement list, HA, DR, business continuity, backups, maybe I need to run certain components on-prem, et cetera. So all of these are available in Kaleido, and all of them have been for quite a number of years now. So it's very, very hardened backend infrastructure. Last thing before I turn it over to the star of the show, folks, you guys came to hear talk. it's a really, really flexible platform, and we've done every shape and every flavor of a commercial engagement with, startups to, major, Fortune 50 consortia. So whether you're in the POC, kicking the tires stage, whether you have a quick deadline to get a pilot out the door, or you have some hardened code and you'd like to maybe lift and shift and run this onto Kaleido, there is a commercial arrangement and an answer for every different flavor of this. So if you'd like to, talk more about your use case or just try Kaleido out for free, encourage you to just, go to the first link that I'm sharing here, sign up for a free account. It is free, no strings attached right there. If you'd like to, speak in a little more detail about tech questions or about, different flavors of the commercial relationships, you can email me directly or sales@kaleido.io. If you have product or tech questions, you can open a ticket in the platform or just email support@kaleido.io. So that was about 10 minutes from me. I will stop sharing and I'll turn it over to Jim. And I would encourage anyone and everyone to don't be shy. I'm not shy. So if you have questions, raise your hand, use the chat, or just be shameless and email us at any of those links that I just shared right there. So over to you, Jim.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. You guys can hear me well?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for the great introduction to Kaleido. Now let's dive into this special area for Fabric support. As you may have known, if you kind of know Kaleido from several years back, we started our platform on supporting Ethereum, enterprise Ethereum flavors with Quorum, Hyperledger Betsu, and Geth. Then we added Corda support, and then now we completed the top 3 protocols in the enterprise space with Fabric support. So very excited to show you guys what you can do with Fabric Networks on Kaleido. Before I dive into that, I want to quickly show you something that Nick just mentioned in the intro. The article comparing the 3 protocols. It's pretty interesting to look at these protocols, what they can do commonly, but what makes them different from each other. So if you're interested, you can just search on Google, just typing any combination of these 3 protocols, for example, Fabric versus Ethereum. Then our blog post is usually among the top 5. So for example, on the search, now it's turning up as the 2nd post. And you can follow along in this pretty elaborate piece about all different angles from a technical point of view between the 3 protocols. And unlike many other so-called ultimate comparisons of these protocols, this one are peer reviewed. You can see that we've got the authorities from each of the communities to review and give us feedback. For example, for R3 content, we had Richard Brown that reviewed it and gave us feedback. For Fabric, we've got David Inyard, who is the dev lead of Hyperledger Fabric. And also for Ethereum, we've got the JP Morgan team to review this and give us feedback. So we'd love for this to be valuable to you. And if you have any additional feedback, feel free to reach out. With that out of the way, let me start diving into today's demo. And I need to move this bar somewhere else, kind of in the way. All right. Cool. So Fabric support on Kaleido. Let's log in. So if you go to Kaleido console, Kaleido.io, just create an account for yourself. We have a perpetual free tier, so you can test things out without having to pay. First thing you want to do is we have 2 layers of resources at the high level. The top layer is networks, what we call business networks. Those are essentially equivalent to consortiums in the real world. When you have a consortium of institutions, companies, and even government ministries, coming together to form a consortium to do something together based on blockchain. You want to create a network to represent that. So let's say this is going to be supply chain. And you can pick what regions you want your resources to be provisioned into, and you can pick one of them to be your home region, and then you can add the rest of them to be available to all your members. So when they provision anything in the consortium, they can pick any of the regions that they want their resources to land. So now we have sort of the structure of the consortium set up. Let's go ahead and see if we have any membership. So we only have one membership, which is the one that I used just now. You can invite others that may already have a Kaleido account, or even if they didn't have any account, if you just know their email, you can use this step to invite them. We're not going to go through that longer process to add new members. Instead, we'll just add some new memberships. So all these memberships, instead of being managed by someone else, it's all owned by you if you create them this way. But it's still very useful to say, use this to represent your departments within the organization, or if you are responsible for managing resources on behalf of some other members, then you can do it this way. So let's say this is going to be Acme. We'll just add a couple more. And this one is going to be bank. Let's say bank 1. Okay, so we've got 3 memberships. So if you want to have more details about what these memberships mean, what does identity mean, I encourage you to go back to our playlist for Tech Tuesday. Nick has awesome previous sessions that cover those fundamentals. We'll just skip those for now because our focus today is Fabric support. So let's go ahead and create a Fabric environment. As you can see, this top level choice gave you 2 doors. One is good old Kaleido as a blockchain platform. So you can pick your blockchain protocols. Or if you know about the recent entry to Hyperledger, the project called Firefly, you can create one of those as well. So instead of just creating a blockchain node, you can create a Firefly node that runs a bunch of components on top of a blockchain. For now, we'll just create a blockchain environment. And you have these 3 choices. We'll pick Fabric and give it a name, demo. Okay, so next. We support Hyperledger Fabric 2.3. We understand this is not currently a LTS, which is still 2.2, but don't worry. We have the background, we have the necessary technical background very deeply in the space, especially in Hyperledger Fabric. A couple of us used to be Fabric maintainers, and we also have awesome engineers that understands the code base. So if there's any problems, we fix them and propose fixes back to the community. We've been doing the same for Ethereum of all flavors for many years. So support will be provided by Kaleido. So even if 2.3 is not an LTS, shouldn't be an issue for you. Okay, so Raft is the only consensus available, even though Kafka was still available. It's the recommended consensus is Raft, so we just picked that. Okay, so now we've got an environment running, which represents a blockchain network. We still don't have anything running yet, so let's go ahead and create something to get the network going. With Kaleido, we want you to have we want every organization that wants to contribute a node into the network to have at least one orderer. This way, you will be represented in the consensus algorithm, and you will be helping to maintain the ordering service of the network. It's also responsible for replicating all the blocks and then disseminating them into the peers of your organization. So the first step for your org is to add an orderer node to the network. So we'll just call it orderer 1, and it'll be owned by Globalx org. Again, you can pick which of these regions you want the orderer to be running. So one note here, since Raft, which is a consensus algorithm, is running among the orderer nodes, it's pretty latency sensitive. The algorithm itself is designed to have constant heartbeat, and timeouts can be interpreted as the node being unavailable, which you wouldn't want to happen if latency is a result of networking conditions. So what we've done is the first orderer of the network, whichever cloud region it picked to be hosted in, all the subsequent orderers have to be provisioned into the same region. This is to make sure networking conditions will never cause any algorithm issues with Raft. So let's say we'll pick US2. This is this is on the East Coast of US. So if you know about Hyperledger Fabric, you know there are 3 kinds of things you have to create to participate in the network. You need to have a certificate authority, which needs to be registered with the network in order to be recognized as a trust base. And then it'll be responsible for issuing certificates to your orderers, to your peers, and to your clients. And then, as we mentioned, we have orderers, and then we have peers that are responsible for running chain codes. So to contribute a orderer, first we need a certificate authority. So this is asking you, what would you like to call your certificate authority? So we'll just take the default. That looks good to us. And you notice that there are different sizes of the node you can contribute. At the moment, we're just picking a small and bigger nodes will come soon. So we'll do just that. And under the cover, the Fabric CA server is going to be bootstrapped with a self-signed certificate as the trusted root. And then it will stamp out certificates for this new orderer, orderer 1. And then it'll actually do a bunch of other things to make sure your journey to having a Fabric channel ready to submit transactions will be as short as possible. So at this point, I'd like to take a sidestep and just review some of the things, some of the design philosophies Kaleido had that is quite different than a majority of the other Fabric providers in the market. If you've gone to any of the other cloud platforms that supports Fabric, you realize that there are so many steps you have to take in order to create a Fabric network, to define a channel, to add a node to the channel, or to deploy a chain code. Because that's what the protocol is designed for. There are many steps that you have to take to do any of those things. And most of the other cloud vendors supporting Fabric basically exposed all those complexities to the user. As a result, you have to go to many steps to create a channel, to contribute nodes into the channel. Well, Kaleido takes a slightly different approach where, from working with customers for many years, we realized a lot of these are not necessary because majority of the participants in the business network rely on a single party to do all these, groundwork, foundational work for them, so that all they care about is, when am I going to submit my first transaction? What is the chain code that's deployed for me to invoke? All the work prior to that, how to set up the network, how to deploy the chain code, they don't really want to be involved. They definitely care about the policies, right? What's the policy underneath? And am I going to be part of the consensus for transactions? They definitely care about that, but they don't necessarily care about going through many steps to get those defined. So what we've done is we are treating the sort of the first member of the network a little differently. We even gave them a name. We call them network operators. And you become a network operator when you want to define a new channel. You go ahead and define what the channel is, give it a name, and then invite the members to it. And then you can also single-handedly deploy chain codes into it, making the channel ready for all the other members to submit their transactions. So as the network provider, you are providing a great service to the rest of the network, and you are able to sort of lift the network off the ground and get it going, so that members are not going to be stuck in multiple steps and complex coordinations among all those members, collect their signatures, making sure everybody sign off on the channel creation configuration or on the chain code package. All that, you can do this on their behalf and provide a great service to your consortium members. So based on that design philosophy, we designed Kaleido's procedure to allow everything to be done without having to involve anyone else. And at the end of the day, the policy is still defined such that when anybody submits a transaction, it still requires the majority of the membership group to sign off on any transaction for that to be recognized as valid. So while we're talking, the first order has been started. So now we have our first order in the network. At the same time, if you look a little closely, you realize that we also have our first channel defined. So that single step not only stood up my first Fabric CA for my org, my first orderer, it also went ahead and defined a channel. We call it default channel. So this is a channel where all the members who contributed anything into this environment will be part of. So this is sort of an all-inclusive channel that all the members will be part of. You can decide that this is useful, so you can go ahead and deploy chain code into it. If your scenario, your use case require a channel that includes everybody, you're ready to use it. Or if your scenario requires a channel that only includes a subset of people, so default channel is not useful for you, you can just ignore it. The good thing is you don't have to worry about it. It's always there, and new members is always joined into this channel. Okay, so For example, if we look at it, all the members are in there. So far, only Globalx has contributed a orderer. The other members don't have anything yet. Okay, so let's go ahead and add some more stuff. As Globalx, I want to contribute a peer. And again, you can pick whichever of these 6 regions you want your code to be, your node to be hosted in. So at this point, maybe I'll choose Azure. So AWS, previously we chose an AWS region on US East Coast. Now let's choose an Azure region on the West Coast. Maybe because some of my members live on the West Coast. So we'll go ahead and provision that. It'll go through all those steps to be provisioned, to be issued the certificate, and then start up and then join the channel. All that is being coordinated for you by Kaleido. Let's add a few more for the other members. So we'll do orderer 2. Again, if remember our first orderer was in US East 2. So if you attempted to place your order in a different region, you'll be told later that this is not possible. So let's go ahead and choose the same region for our orderer. And since this is a new member joining the environment, we also need to provision the underlying certificate authority. All right. So that is going. And let's see, in the meanwhile, my peer is still initializing and my second order is also initializing. So let's add a peer to the second member. Okay, cool. So at this point, we've got 2 orderers and 2 peers, one from each of the members. Maybe that's enough. And we'll just wait a little bit for these nodes to start up and join the channel. So it'll be ready to take chain code deployment. So while this is going, let's go ahead and look at the next step. So typically for developers, after you've stood up a fabric network and you have defined a channel, you will want to deploy some chain codes into the channel. Or maybe you want to define a channel for your own purposes. Again, as I mentioned, the default channel includes everybody. Maybe you just want a subset of memberships for your use case. So let's go ahead and create our new channel. So we'll call this US Trades. US Trades. Okay, so it's telling me let's use lowercase US Trades. This will be a channel that'll be responsible for all the trades among the memberships that are located in the US. And let's just include Acme and maybe just between Globalx and Acme. Those are the only memberships who are leaving bank 1 out of this channel. Okay, so this channel will have just those 3 memberships. Okay, so this channel now is being created. So again, if you're familiar with Fabric, you know many steps are happening under the cover at this point. It's defining the Genesis block that has the permissioning for those 3 memberships or 2 memberships, Globalx and Acme. And then the nodes, the orderer nodes and the peer nodes from those orgs are presented the Genesis block, and they're joined into the channel. So you can see the channel is now live, which means those nodes will have been joined into the channel already. And as we're talking, all the nodes have been provisioned and started. So to quickly verify things are going really well, let's go to one of the nodes and take a look at the log. So you can see this is one of the orderers, and the orderers have, let's see, if there's any signs of the orderer joining the channel. Okay, you can see this channel has 2 nodes defined, and this current orderer is node 1. So we're already part of the new channel. Let's go to orderer 2, go to the logs, and see if we get the same. So we are node 2, and US Trades channel, we're part of that channel already. And you can see that blogs are being downloaded into that channel for this orderer. And they've already elected a leader for the raft consensus among the 2 orderer nodes. Okay, so this is going pretty well. Let's go ahead and make sure our peer is also joined into the channel. Peer logs may be a bit more chatty. Let's see. Okay. Instead of doing that, maybe we can use a different way to make sure we're part of the channel. So every peer node comes with the Block Explorer or Blockchain Explorer that's developed by the Hyperledger community. So you can use the ID and password to open that. Then it'll show you that, okay, I need to move these things around. It'll show you that they should be part of the channel. Okay. Maybe something is not quite ready under the cover. We'll revisit that later. I'm pretty sure this node is still joining the channel. And that's why we don't have that showing just yet. So regardless, we should be ready to take the next step. So we want to deploy our chain code into the newly created Fabric environment. So for this, we'll just go ahead and use the sample available in Hyperledger Fabric samples project. So this is Fabric samples, which is available in Hyperledger. And we'll just use the most basic one, asset transfer. And if you're not familiar with that, it's pretty straightforward to maintain a list of assets. You can give it any name you want. And the asset will be created through a transaction, and they can be queried and they can be deleted. So we'll just go ahead and make a compile. So we have one of those bins, and we're ready to deploy them. So to deploy a chain code, if you use Kaleido to do that, the first step is to define your chain code project. Let's give it a name. we'll call it asset transfer. Just use underscore. It supports two kinds of chain codes. Either give us a binary file that you compile out of a Golang chain code, or if you have a Node.js-based chain code, you can point Kaleido to a GitHub repository that hosts the Node.js chain code project, or you can upload a zip file as well, or just use a Golang executable because that's more nimble. It's smaller. And we've defined the project. Now let's create our first version. Our first version, let's call it V1, and we'll pick the project that we compiled earlier. It'll be available here. We'll just do version, still version V1. Okay. The chain code doesn't really need any invocations, so we'll just skip that. So at this step, we're uploading the file into Kaleido so that the chain code binary will be available for any environments within this business network. You notice that the app project is created at the network level. So if you create more Fabric environment within this network, this chain code will be available to all of them. Okay, so we just created the version. Let's go to the version and then make that available to a environment. So as I mentioned, at this point, it's only available at the network level. So now let's push this down to a environment for our Fabric network. So this step is called promote. So now it's ready to be used in the environment. And of course, in the real world scenario, between the step of uploading this into the environment and deploying it to a, uploading it to a network, and between that and making that available to an environment, you want everybody to sort of verify that this is indeed the right chain code that we have agreed on. So everybody can look at the binary, can compare that with our own compilations to make sure they match. So now it's available and ready to deploy to a channel. So we can pick any of these. So let's just go ahead and deploy that to US trades. We'll finish this. And that's it. So that's all it takes to deploy the chain code to a channel. And again, if we want to verify the deployment of the chain code has succeeded, we can go to log, and then we see that this line showed up, that this chain code is now available on channel US trades. Okay, so it looks like it's ready for invocation. Okay, so at this point, you've got a channel defined between those two memberships, and then you have a chain code deployed. And the chain code at this point is not only installed on all the peers, but also approved for both of the membership organizations, and it's been committed to the channel. So everything is ready. It's already taken care of for you by Kaleido under the cover. So now you're ready to call it. And if you have developed with Fabric, you know calling a Fabric requires a bunch of programming let me show you the sample application we wrote to do just that. So if you go to GitHub and go to Kaleido.io, that's our org, and find Kaleido Fabric samples, you can find this repository. So we've got two versions of the sample app, one implemented in Golang, the other in Node.js. So what it does is there are two steps the client app does in order to call the chain code. First, it needs to build the common connection profile to know what's the host name of the peer I need to call. Where is the Fabric CA server running? So I can ask it to give me the necessary user certificate that I have to use to submit my transactions. And then finally, it'll call the peer to submit transactions. So in order to build the common connection profile, it'll just be using Kaleido APIs to discover where's my consortium, where's my environment, what are my peers, where's my Fabric CA. As you may have heard from Nick from previous Tech Tuesday sessions, everything you can do in Kaleido, you can do it through an REST API, and they're documented, well documented online. So Kaleido as a platform is fully API enabled. So that's what this application is using in order to build the common connection profile and then use it to call the peer. So let's go ahead and run it. I've already compiled it, which is called the binary KFG, and I've already set my API key, which is the only thing you need for this program to run. You define the environment API key. That's what you need to do. The details for running the application is available when you go to the details page of each of the client apps. Okay, so I've already done that. Let's go ahead and call the program. So it connects to Kaleido and discover, oh, okay, you've got two consortiums. Which one would you like to target for today? So that's going to be 0, supply chain, and within this, there are, it found that there's only one environment, so that's already picked, but there are 3 memberships. So which one would you like to submit transactions from? So we'll do 0, that's our Globalx. We know this is one of the members in the US trade channel. So we pick that. What it does is it's gonna ask your Fabric CA to issue a client certificate, and then it also generates a certificate for user 1, so that can be used to submit transactions. And then it also discovered all these information about the network. So this can be provided to the SDK in order to connect to the network and submit transactions. So all that is done, and you can see, you can look at the code to see exactly how that is accomplished. Once that is discovered, it's ready to submit a transaction, and it just go ahead and define a new asset using a randomly generated number, and then that asset has been submitted to the chain. So we just realized it's submitting it to default channel. We needed to submit to a different channel, which is our US trade. Maybe I'm using a different wrong version of this that didn't know about the other channel. So let's go ahead and deploy the chain code to to default channel. So I could fix this so it's aware of US trade, but we're not going to have the time to do that. So let's go ahead and deploy our chain code to default channel as well. Okay, so we'll do that. Okay, then we'll make sure that peers have the chain code successfully deployed. Now you can see chain code is deployed and available in default channel. Okay, so hopefully when we call this again, it'll be able to submit the transaction successfully. 0, and then sending transaction. So this time it's completed successfully. So that's sort of an end-to-end demo of Kaleido Fabric support, including submitting transactions at the end. Before we wrap up, I want to show you something else, which is part of the Hyperledger Firefly project. It's a connector that connects to a Fabric environment and provide a RESTful interface. So why you might be interested in this, as you can see, calling a Fabric network to submit transactions, discovering channels may not be the easiest thing to do. It takes a whole bunch of coding, right? You can look at the details in the sample app. It's pretty difficult. It's pretty complex to submit transactions to a Fabric environment. Wouldn't it be great if I can do that using a web interface? So I can just target a RESTful URL and send a bunch of JSON. So we developed this component, we call it Fabric Connector, that does just that. So it's got two main functional areas. So if you go to Hyperledger Firefly Connect, you can see the detailed design of this component. So it's got reliable queuing of transaction submissions and provides a RESTful interface. It can utilize Kafka so that you will never lose your transactions, even if your target node is not available. And it also provides events. So your applications can subscribe to events through either a WebSocket or a webhook. So when events are delivered from the Fabric node side, it'll be relayed by this component to your client applications, either through a webhook post or through a WebSocket bilateral channel. So let's take a look at that. Nick, are we running out of time?
We have about 5 minutes left, so let's take a look at this. This is really useful.
Should be enough time. So you just give it some configuration that tells the component where your peers are. So that's basically telling the FabConnect, here is the common connection profile, and launch it. So now we have a bunch of RESTful interfaces available. So you can find things like where are all the identities available, and what are the transactions, what's the event stream. And you can, when you submit a transaction, you can use it to create new users and enroll them just by doing the post to identities and then enroll them. That's very easy. And then you can use it to submit transactions. Very simple call to target your chain code function and provide your arguments in the string array. You can also, if you want, if you don't want to deal with string array, which is can be error prone, because if you may have complex data input and you have to encode them into strings. You can instead use a complex JSON as the input by providing a schema for the input, so that FabConnect knows how to decode your JSON object and transform into the string arrays required by Fabric and send those in. This way, you can use complex data objects like this as your input, and you don't have to worry about encoding them as strings. So this is much better for complex data inputs for your chain code. And let's go ahead and create a event stream. So this event stream, as I mentioned, can be based on WebSocket or it can be based on webhook. So let's go ahead and do a webhook one. So you just give it a name and then say that it'll be based on webhook, WebSocket, sorry, give it a topic. So the WebSocket is sort of a shared pipe. So you have to use a topic to divide between the one event stream versus another. So we just created the event stream. Now let's create a subscription. Subscriptions tells the event server what is the specific kind of events you're interested in. So we will be, I think the identities is gonna be user one. So we'll create a subscription based on user one as the identity. And then we'll be listening to asset transfer chain code, and the event we're interested in is asset created. And this is this can be a regular expression. So if you have interest in multiple events, then you can use regular expression as the event filter. So, okay, we need to give it the proper event stream ID, which is the one we just created. Okay, so at this point, we have a WebSocket stream going from listening to events. To subscribe to that, we can use a command line client that can connect to WebSockets. It runs on 3000 at the WS endpoint. So to tell the event server that you are one of the listening clients, you need to post a payload like this. So I'm going to listen, and the topic is test one. Okay, so we're subscribed. Whenever any events are available on this topic, we should be notified. So now at this point, let's go ahead and submit some transactions. So we'll use user one as the identity, and then we want to submit an asset 100. So let's give it a try. So to submit, you can either use a synchronous or asynchronous transaction. Okay. What's the problem says failed? Okay, maybe the version, I remember the version doesn't support complex G code. So let's try this one. I'm gonna, instead of waiting for the transaction to finish, I'm going to not wait. So, okay, we need to give it a value appraisal. Okay. Let's say 1,000. Okay, what's going on here? I must not have, okay, 100 is available. What about, okay, that's all available. What about 500? Okay, so 500 is a new transaction. So because I submitted asynchronously, I want to be able to poll and see what was the result of that transaction. So you can take this ID, which is a receipt ID, and then poll for the results. So 3,000. Receipt not available. Did I not have the right? But regardless, we already got notified of this transaction result. As you can see, our event subscription tells us that the new asset 500 is now has been mined into a block. So we just need to acknowledge that, so that we can receive the next event when that happens. And when you submit the next event, you will get notified again. So sorry about a little glitch. I hope it's easy enough to follow. Just want to show you the cool things you can do with this component, sending transactions with RESTful URL in JSON, and then listen to the event through webhook or WebSocket. Since we're not able to show you examples of the webhook, I can at least show you some of the runs I've done earlier. So this is a webhook testing site. Usually you have to implement the post endpoint yourself with, of course, credentials to protect it. But this is a website that's freely available, so you can host publicly available webhook endpoints. And this is the kind of payload that gets posted when you have an event stream based on webhook. With that, I'd like to wrap up. Sorry about going over time. I hope this session has been useful to you. So now back to you, Nick.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. And thanks everyone so much for attending and giving us a few extra minutes. If you let me share the screen one final time, I'll just put those email addresses back up. There were a handful of questions that I know we didn't get to, folks. A couple good ones from Yogi and Hisham here at the end. So please just reach out to us offline, and happy to get back to you and even do a one-on-one or multi-party conversation if that makes sense. So sales@kaleido.io, support for technical questions, or this is my direct email address if you'd like to talk in more detail. So as Jim mentioned, there's the public Fabric samples that's available on the Kaleido.io domain in GitHub. The Firefly project has been fully incubated into Hyperledger. That's where that Fab Connect work is being driven and moderated currently. And then you can, of course, just use the Kaleido platform and use our documentation as pointers and as a reference. So we'll wrap up with that. Really would just like to say thank you so much for everyone that attended. This is recorded. You'll get it in the very near future, probably within the day. And then as you can see, we have a really rich platform with a lot of features, a lot of protocols, a lot of different use cases. So we are going to be ramping up Tech Tuesdays again and look to bring on some partners and clients and share some user stories and actually talk you through sort of the next evolutions of the open source project Firefly and other features that get added into Kaleido. So stay tuned for some email outreach from the Kaleido team and our marketing department. So with that, one final thank you to the audience and to Jim for a lovely presentation. And we wish everyone a great rest of their Tuesday. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks so much, everyone.